Hello!
Hello, welcome to episode 6.
Oh my god. Okay, it's been a long while, but
Yes,
here we
life
are.
has been chaotic.
But end of the first term
Yes,
survived
we're
smoothly,
ready.
but not really. But full of ideas, full of new things. Going back to one of the things that is really dear. So this episode, we are going to just talk a little bit about literacy. And so many things that we could talk about, but we're going to try and be very uh, succinct, if that is
I
even
like,
possible.
yeah.
But okay, so Vanessa, do you want to start talking a little bit about your experience with
Yes.
literacy?
Yeah, so my experience has been mostly, or all of it, between K and 2, right? I spent 2 years in preschool when I arrived here in the US, but other than that, my 15 years of teaching, it has always been between K and second. Um, I think second has a special place in my heart because I just love the age. But the process between K and first is something that I love it. It's just magical. So I'm gonna start a little bit with like the all the different strategies and different things that I learned throughout this time. So when I first started teaching, I was in first grade in Brazil, and then there are two people that I have to talk about, which are Nani and Katrina. I think they are the two people that actually showed me so much about literacy and teaching the kids how to um, learn how to read. So Katrina, she was like the American just arriving in the US, and she had all this like, let's teach them through all the fun parts. So she had all the craft ideas, she knew all the holidays, and she had like so many amazing and fun ideas and trying to like connect them with reading. So how can we connect this fun craft about a bat during Halloween and this can become a reading activity? And it was really nice to have someone being so creative. And then Nani on the other side, she's like the organized one that has all the plans and all the things. And she was the first one that introduced me to Jolly Phonics. And I thought it was amazing because back then we would teach like the letters in alphabetical order and we would go and teach some sounds here and there. And then I think we were in like just following whatever the book was telling us to do and teaching according to that. So the program that we were using would tell a story and then they would get a letter from that story. And that was the literacy program, right? So when I was first introduced to Jolly Phonics, I thought it was amazing because they did work with the 7 letters and then sounds and then movement and then stories. So there were lots of different elements that were presented to that kid about that only letter. And then once they had the 7 letters, they could start making little words. So I think if I'm not wrong, the first 3 letters they teach is SAT, PIN something.
Sat
There's
pin.
I don't remember.
Sat pin.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly, but that's it. And then with those sounds, they can start manipulating and they can start segmenting and blending and making sounds. And in that aspect, I think it's very similar to what we are doing nowadays with the science of reading. So here in the US, and I think it's everywhere now, it's very big, the science of reading. And if if you have never
Starting with this,
learned,
right?
yes, it's amazing because now they're actually studying how our brain reads. So the science of reading is not um, a methodology. It's not like teaching how to read,
Mhm.
but it's just knowledge for the teacher. So it's for
Yes.
us teachers to understand how our brain learns and how the children's brain are connecting all the information. And through that, then there are some other things coming out of it, right? So one of UNF, I think it's a college here in Florida, they developed the UFly program and UF, sorry, University of Florida. So I said the wrong one. And so they developed the UFly, and the UFly is connected to the science of reading. And but it works pretty much the same way. So we teach the kids the sounds of the letters, and they are in a different order. We teach one sound every 2 days, and then the sound is presenting so many different ways, and the kid has so many different opportunities to manipulate that sound. So we have phonemic awareness, where we just sound it out, segment, blend. We have a different moment, there's called a blending drill, where like we have a part that is on the computer that we put the sounds and we tell the kids, okay, I have um, cat, at, what do you want me to, how can I make hat? And then let's sound it out. At, hat. Oh, what did I change? Beginning, middle, or ending sound. And then you make the kid think about it. And then in this process, we have to ask questions in two different ways. So I ask, like, how can I make? Or if I change that for that, what do I make? So then they are working with two different things. Um, and we also, like, we go all the way to decodables, which are like little texts. So starting on lesson 8, they already have like little texts that they can decode with words that they are able to decode. And so it is very fast, the process, because they are already reading the sounds, learning all the sounds, putting them together, and when they look at it, they're like, huh, I'm amazing, I can read a whole page. And then we work on the fluency of those texts. So that's the process of UFly. um, as a teacher, sometimes it's complicated because we do have to follow the manual. You have to follow like step by step what it's saying, but it is like amazing to see how fast the process is, and how the kids are like, we are what, 6 months into it. I am on lesson 30 right now, and we haven't introduced all the sounds yet. There are some consonants still missing. But my kids can read pretty well. Like, I have some kids, my high flyers, they read fluently. And I have the other kids that are still decoding, blending, and it's amazing as well. So that's where we are now. So, and then we use two different processes, because we do have the part where it's like learning how to decode, segment, and all those things. And not segment, yeah, segment the word. That was weird. uh, and then we have the reading block, where we talk about stories, characters, because the science of reading, um, they say that one thing does not develop without the other one. So at the same time that you are teaching the sounds, you are teaching like the small parts of the words, you also have to be working with like characters, setting, main topic, descriptive words, and blah blah blah. So there are two blocks, and that's how we work here in kindergarten.
Yeah, so let's just break it
Wrap
down,
it up.
right? No, break it down, because you said so many things, and maybe
Yes.
people are not aware of many of the things that were mentioned here. So just to start with, how old are your students?
Five,
So
five to six.
they're 5 and they're gonna turn 6 next year, right? So
Well, they are turning throughout kindergarten. So they start kindergarten 5 and they finish kindergarten with 6.
okay, because my students now, they're all 6, and
Mm-hmm.
then in January they're gonna start turning 7, because I teach
Oh, okay.
Form 1, I teach first grade,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
But that's how the age is separated here. So they have to be 6 till the end of the year, and then they start turning 7.
Okay.
Okay. Thinking about the Jolly Phonics and a little bit of that, that is a system that we call systematic um, phonics, right?
Mhm.
Systematic
Yes.
teaching, because you are going from, sorry, systematic, no, synthetic. So
Fantastic.
you're
Yeah.
going from the small part to the
Yes.
big part, right? So you go from the sounds to the words, and then from the words to the
Sentence. Yes.
phrase, sentence, and then
Yes.
text, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we understand when we start studying about literacy is that is always okay. So we have now the moment where we're just going to do synthetic phonics, and then we're going to do whole language, because then whole language is the other way around. So you start with a big text, and then you're
Yes.
breaking down to the small parts.
Mm-hmm.
And you have some um, parts of the some era that is
Mm-hmm.
balanced literacy, where you have, no, you cannot just go from the small to the big or from the big to the small. You have to have a balance. So
Uh-huh.
now we are kind of in a
And the
balanced
balance.
literacy process because
Yes.
the science reading says, it states that you have to work both ends, because otherwise you're going to have very good decoders because they're going to be able to
Yes.
read everything, but then they will
Hmm.
understand nothing because they're not going to
Exactly.
have vocabulary. They're not going to have the understanding of what they're reading, because that is not actually developed, because you're not
Exactly.
teaching those skills.
Hmm.
And then if you start thinking about the whole language, they are the kids start being too reliant on others reading for them, because they don't have all the skills that they need to be able to decode
Yep.
by themselves, right?
Perfect. Yep.
So one of the things that I really um okay thinking about my
Hmm.
background now. So I was a music teacher for a long time, and then when I had my kids, I my daughter, when she was 2 years old, she would bring a book home and she would read the book,
Hmm.
right? She knew exactly when to move the page, not because she was actually reading it, but she had it memorized, but she knew exactly when to turn the page because she was already recognizing some of the letters in there and all of that. And when she was 4, I have a video, I can prove that. She was 4, she was already writing full
I
words.
remember. Yeah.
I have a video where she's writing bolo and brigadeiro. She doesn't write all the letters in brigadeiro, but you can see. And she
Hmm.
wrote M, right? That's how we say M&Ms in
Uh-huh.
Brazil, right? But she wrote M. And it's amazing. It's impressive. And I was like, how she's 4, how can she do that?
Hmm.
So that just called my attention, and I started I um I learn a lot by myself, right? By reading and
Hmm.
all of that. So I started reading a lot about the literacy process and all of that, and it really caught my attention. I said, okay, I have to do something about this. So I started incorporating some of the things in my music lessons. So I started thinking, okay, how can I use my lessons to reinforce the skills that they need to read and write? Because I
Hmm.
read a lot and I knew that music was a big part of the learning in reading and writing, because nursery rhymes, the little stories,
Yes.
rhythm, and all of that, the patterns, all
Hmm.
of that helped with the reading and the writing process. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So I even developed a course where I would help teachers knowing how they could use music in their lessons to
Hmm.
reinforce those skills and help and all of
Hmm.
that. So I have a series of different activities that they could do to help with that. For example, using Bingo, the song.
Hmm.
There was a farmer had a dog and Bingo was his name. Oh, Bingo. That is saying the letters names,
Yes.
but then they could use with different words, and that would help them
Hmm.
with other things. So then that's when I shifted to classroom teacher, and my main focus was still studying how reading and writing could be developed in a bilingual context, right? So
Hmm.
I took some courses on biliteracy and read a lot and all of that. And one of the books that really changed my perspective was this one. So the Hain was he wrote lots of different books,
Hmm.
not only about reading but also numbers. So there's a very nice
Hmm.
book on number sense and all of that. But he is studying neuroscience. He's a neuroscientist, and one of the things that he says is that reading and writing is not a natural process. It's
Hmm.
something that humans created. So, because of that, it relies on different parts of the brain to be able to happen, right? So, you need to develop your visual understanding, your visual part of the brain, because that is a natural thing, right?
Hmm.
Developing
Yep.
the visual part, but you need that to be able to read and write. You need to develop other skills. Um, Communication is in a different part of the brain, and the way you memorize things It's really amazing. But
Uh-huh.
the part where he says that it's not natural really caught my attention, because if it's not natural, it means that you have to be really explicit about things, because otherwise you're not going to make the connections. You're not going to transfer. So when we're teaching how to read and how to write, we need to be explicit about every single thing that
Yep.
we want our kids to know.
It has to be intentional.
It has to be intentional, because eventually they will make the transfers, they
Hmm.
will make the connections,
Yes.
but it's gonna be way more energy draining if they have to do that. So if we
Yep.
give them the information, if we help them make the transfers, that's going to be way easier. And when we're talking about kids that are exposed to different languages, we need to be even more intentional. So we have to say, um, for a kid that comes from, let's say, a Jewish Hebrew background, so they know
Hmm.
Hebrew, they know that in that language they read from right to left, they write from right to left. But in
Yes.
English, in Portuguese, we do it the other way around, it's from left to right. So we need
Hmm.
to be intentional. So this year I got a student that came from that background, and first day of classes, I asked him to write his name. And of course, he wrote it from right to
Backwards,
left.
right?
Of course,
Yep.
because he never had the experience of studying in a
Hmm.
school where English was the main language and Portuguese was the other language. And he did not know. So I had
Hmm.
to tell him, look, in English and in Portuguese,
Yes.
we do it from left to right. And I was, okay. And I had to draw an arrow and all, because he wasn't
Hmm.
so confident with English as well. So I had to be explicit and show him and reinforce that with
Yep.
him. Now he's okay. He's comfortable.
Yep.
He knows what to do. He knows, of course, sometimes he still starts reading
Of course.
some
Yeah.
words from the other way around, but that's okay. Um,
But can I pick back on that just a little bit?
sure.
Because I think that was a backlash, especially here when like UFY came, or other different materials came, teaching, telling us how to teach, because we have to follow a script, right? And
Hmm.
I remember that was I was in one of the workshops learning about, and I think it was the UFY, and then one of the teachers, like, she raised her hand and she said, well, we do all of that, and why do we have to follow, like, I've been teaching for 20 years, and why do I have to follow what is written there? And the response from the lady that was instructing us was, she said, well, when we say things, we usually say in many different ways, and we say things that confuse the kids even more because we know what is coming after. So we try to say way more. And then when you are doing that, you get off topic. Kids get distracted. Kids that were not worried about that, they get distracted. And when you are intentional, when you go step by step and you say only what you have to do,
Hmm.
you are not putting more information they need, and you are going exactly where they need to be at that moment.
Hmm.
And I think that was interesting because we do tend to speak way more than we should, and we do tend to, like, get sidetracked when someone says something else. So we it as teachers, we want to, like, and that kid, we understand that C makes sometimes, if it's the letter what and what not, but like half of the class or more than half of the class, they are not ready for that yet.
Hmm.
But then you're gonna say, "Oh no, but you are gonna do that. You were correct, but blah 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 blah," and then you were already saying way more than you were supposed to.
Hmm.
And that's why we stick to the program, to be intentional and to say what is going to be effective at that process, at that time in their process. So I
Hmm.
think it's interesting.
And one of the things that I think it's really interesting about that, the the more we study about the brain, the better we understand how things function. So when you were talking about Jollyphonics, I think it's really interesting as a program because it gives them the sensory needs. It covers the sensory needs because it has the
Mhm.
movement, the song. So it's going to sensory because it has the movement.
Mhm.
It's going on the auditory system because you have the music. It's going on the tactile as well, and
When
because
you write, yep.
you're writing. You're gonna have the visual because you're seeing the image, you're making connections with a word of reference
Yes.
and all of that, right? But one of the things that I think it's really um, interesting to notice when we look at Jolly Phonics or Floppy Phonics, that's the one that I use at school, is that there's never the right sequence that
Mm-hmm.
is going to fit all of their needs.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you're saying here, um, we need to follow that script
Mm-hmm.
because then we're just giving them what they're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
But we're always going to have that student that's going to know all of the things
Yes.
already,
Yes.
right? But we are not teaching for those kids. We're not teaching for the no matter what learners, right? The
Yes.
students that are going to learn regardless of the way we teach. We're
Yes. And that
teaching,
unifies response. That's
right?
exactly what they say. They say the whole group time is for the whole group. And then this kid you're going to get on your small group, on your differentiated portion of your class,
Mhm.
on the independent activity time. That's the time you're going to get the high flyer, or that's the time you're getting this kid. But the other time, like when you are with the whole group and you're following the program, that's the majority. That's what the study says that they are, because it's based on studies, it's
Mhm.
based on data, it's based on, so that's you are teaching the whole group. You're not teaching that kid. And you are not stopping for that kid that is not getting it yet as well.
Mhm.
So you're not going back 10 times because you have one kid that is not making the C to the right side. You are moving on because
Moving
that's the
on, and
whole
then
group time.
exactly, and then when you
Yes,
have the small group, you're going to tackle the needs, the specific
exactly.
needs of the kids.
Yes.
So maybe we can start talking about some myths because
I like that.
that's gonna fall exactly on that first one. So first myth about literacy: strong oral language automatically leads to strong literacy. So I want to start talking about that one first because
Oh, of course.
when we're thinking about literacy, it's important that we are not just considering reading, but also writing, because in English, that's one thing, right?
Hmm.
In Portuguese, we separate,
A lot.
right? But in English, that's one thing. Literacy is that. And I have a student that he is impeccable orally.
Hmm.
Tell him to do anything in reading or writing, he's gonna flop
It flips. Hmm.
because most probably he has a language disorder. Most
Hmm.
probably, I don't know because he wasn't tested, he wasn't assessed, but
Hmm.
most probably he has.
There's something.
There's something there.
Hmm.
And one thing that I noticed is that with this kid, and not only with him, but with other kids as well, you have to go step by step, one thing at a time, and you have to go really slowly and repeat 100 times the same
Hmm.
skill so he's able to retain. And
Hmm.
because working memory, we can, like this book, we cannot retain more than three things depending on your age. You cannot
Yes.
retain three things in your working memory. You cannot focus on more than three things.
Hmm.
So open your book, get a pencil, write the date, and start
That's too
writing a
much.
text. No, right? You
Aren't you listening to me right now, people?
right? You lost half of your students if you give too many things for them to do. So it's really important that when we are breaking it down, when we're following a script, when we're just giving them what they need at that moment,
Hmm.
that's what we're catering for, right? We're
Hmm.
giving them
Yes.
just a little bit at a time and giving them time to practice and giving them the skills and giving them time to practice again. And then we add something else and then they practice more.
Yes.
And it's really difficult for some people to understand that not because a kid is a native speaker or because the kid is really amazing
Mm-hmm.
in the whole group lesson that they're not going to perform the same way when they have to read or write,
Yes.
right? And we
Yes.
need, and it's okay to go back
Yep.
and go step by step and to reinforce the things. And but it's also important that you're not going back with the whole group, right?
Yep.
You have to.
Uh-huh. So with that, I'm thinking like as you were talking, I was thinking about two very important things. One is like think about how many adults you know that are like amazing communicators that they get the attention of the whole like the whole crowd, but then they cannot even finish reading a book
Yeah.
because they cannot focus on that, or they cannot like write a text or like write anything.
Mm-hmm.
um, so the abilities are not connected, and then it connects to the gift and endorsement that I'm taking, and it talks about the different types of giftedness.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm gifted, it doesn't mean that I am awesome academically. Because I'm gifted, it doesn't mean that I am awesome in every single area that I try to go. Like, I can be gifted in sports, I can be gifted in art, I can be gifted in reading. What about our autistic kids? That they might have a vocabulary that you're like, where did you
Where
get
is
that?
that coming from? Yeah.
But they are never going to sit down and write because of their sensory skills, or never. They will with the right support and with the right
Mm-hmm.
interventions. But it's like it's not their area of strength. So it's like it's not because you're a great speaker or because
Mm-hmm.
your oral language is amazing that you were able to read, you were able to write, or that you're going to do both things amazingly just because you're amazing at one thing. We are so diverse that.
Yeah. And thinking about autistic kids, there are several cases of kids that they have hyperlexia, so they will be able to read every word in every language and all of that,
Hmm.
and they're going to be able to repeat everything, but the understanding of it is
Is
not
not
there.
there.
It's not
Yep.
there, right? So it's something that we also have to study a lot and research a lot to be able to say, look, I understand that this kid is reading, but that's not transferring to the other
Comprehension.
aspects. Comprehension is not there, and even for writing. So I remember I had a student, he was 4, and
Hmm.
you would put any text in front of him, and he would read, he would
Hmm.
decode everything, but he wouldn't be able to form a sentence independently, orally,
Uh-huh.
because he was nonverbal.
Uh-huh.
But he was reading. He
Yes.
was so
Yep.
another topic. Let's leave that one for
Yes.
some other day. But
Let's go to second myth.
that oh,
Yep.
that's why I love
Yep.
it so much because it's so amazing. Okay.
Second myth.
Literacy in one language guarantees literacy in the other.
Mm.
Start with you.
Should I start? Wow, that's so complicated because it does not guarantee. I don't think there is any guarantee in any of the areas. I think you cannot even say that one child, like, I cannot guarantee that a child is going to perform at grade level in every single level in their whole life. Like, you cannot guarantee.
No.
And it's not because they speak one language that they will speak another language. It's not because they know about one culture that they will learn about another culture. And I think it's just complicated. I do think that there are higher possibilities if you have a kid that is already very developed on their first language. So if they understand the systems or if they understand the writing and the reading process, it is easier to make some transfers and bridging knowledge. I do believe in bridging knowledge, but dun, dun, dun. But it doesn't mean that they are going to be successful.
Mhm.
Because when we are speaking another language, we are developing a different part of the brain that is not only the language part of the brain, but we
Mhm.
are developing decision making, we are developing our frontal lobe, and then it's another area. So you are exercising different areas of your brain.
Mhm.
So there's no guarantee, and that's my intake.
And that is something that um once again we can go back to the to our last episode. So our kids, uh
Yes.
there's no guarantee, right?
Mm-hmm.
One kid or one adult, because if we use us as examples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to force ourselves to read in one language just because we want to keep that language as a language of use. But it's not a guarantee that because one kid because you're reading in one language, you're going to be able to read in the other. So one thing, it goes back to the beginning of this episode when we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about languages, and one thing that some people don't know is that languages are different, and they're different in many senses. And
Yes.
for example, if you're comparing English and Portuguese, uh, Portuguese is way more transparent, so the relationship between the sound and the letter that you're
Yep.
writing is way more one to one than
Yes,
in
and it's
English,
syllabic. Yep.
right? And you have the syllabic part that helps a lot. And this week I was watching a video of Formula One drivers
Mm-hmm.
speaking in Italian because Italian is one of the languages of Ferrari, for example.
Yes. Yes.
And all the drivers that once raced for Ferrari, they know how to speak Italian. And depending on the driver, you're not gonna even notice that
Mm-hmm.
he's not native.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impressive. And why is that? Because Italian is even more transparent. So it's even
Yes. Mm-hmm.
easier to learn,
Mm-hmm.
especially to speak, than other languages, right? So um, and that reflects how the languages are going to transfer. So I cannot
Mm-hmm.
guarantee that just because I know how to read in one language, I'm going to be able to read in another because the transfers are not the same. And that is something that I see at least every day in
Yep.
my lessons when I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing the writing of my students. I see so many transfers of Portuguese when they're writing in
Mm-hmm.
English. And that is normal. And that is something
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to talk about a little bit more in our third myth.
Can I tell you just before we get there? Can I just give you an example of Maya? So she was reading something and it was the word semana, right, which is week. It was the word in Portuguese, and then she was reading and she's like, "Mom, what is this? Sem Anna, Sem Anna," and I'm like, Maya, Portuguese is syllabic, so you get a consonant and a vowel and you put them together, so it's se, ma, na. And she's like, "No, mom, that's not what's written there." I'm like, "Oh gosh, yes, it is." But because, and she has the Portuguese, like she speaks Portuguese fluently.
Hmm.
She doesn't read Portuguese fluently though, and she reads English, and in English it's not syllabical, so she's not going to put the syllables. But it took me a while. It's just like, how are you doing sem Anna? It's like semana. It makes no sense. But that I think it's a very clear example of how the transfer goes and how they like make the relationship between the two languages.
Hmm. And our
Third
third
myth.
myth is mixing languages confuses children.
Well, in my house, if this confuses them, so then they have a problem for life.
This is something that we see a lot, right? So
Yes.
it's not only in the school system that we see some people saying, no, I'm not going to put my kid in a bilingual, or I'm going to take the kid from the bilingual school because they are mixing the languages and they're getting confused.
Hmm.
And we also see that in speech therapy.
Yes.
Lots of speech therapists that have no understanding of different languages. They just think that because a kid is using one system, the system of one language,
Mhm.
to use the other language, that is a problem.
Mhm.
And that's exactly the contrary.
Mhm.
Because the more you give, more tools you're giving,
Mhm.
the better it is for the kids to produce things,
Yes.
right? So this is something that I like just reinforcing and saying all the
Mhm.
time. It's not a problem. Mixing the languages in oral language or in
Mhm.
written language or when they're reading things, that is a natural process. It's
Yes.
going to happen. There's
Mhm.
no such a thing of a kid or an adult that is learning a language and doesn't mix them. It's
Mhm.
impossible. I
Yep.
at least I have never seen any of that. Like a
Yep.
person that, oh, never, never one language mixing with the other. No. And if we notice one language, if we study one language, it's already mixed with other languages. The
Mhm.
words, they come from different places.
Yep.
And especially now that we have a hyper connected world,
Uh-huh.
it's impossible that the languages are not going to be mixed. And
Mixed. Yep.
if you think that that's a problem, then meteor
Lock yourself in a
comes.
box. Yes.
come, please come and explode everything and let's start over because,
Yep.
right, that's not.
And also, I think that like it depends on what you were leaving in that language, right? Like my grandma had like she had like a medical issue this year, and then well, I got the call. I was at school, and I could not explain to my friends what she had. Like I was crying, and they were like, "Well, is it okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to explain to you all what's happening because I don't have the words in English for that thing."
Hmm.
Like, and I don't even want to have the words in English for that because I wouldn't even understand. So you see, I think it depends so much on what you were living in that situation. Like I am not going to expect that my daughters know like scientific names and terms
Hmm.
in Portuguese if they have never in their lives heard those words in Portuguese. And so whenever they are explaining it to me, they are going to use the Portuguese words that they know, but in between the sentences, they're going to say magnetic,
Hmm.
they're going to say pressure, they're going to say matter, because those are the words that are part of their lives. Those are the words that they are being exposed to.
Yeah.
They don't know the words in Portuguese. Sometimes they create some words that it's even funnier because they say the word but with a Portuguese pronunciation. It's hilarious, but that's the way that they are trying to
Makes sense.
understand and make sense of the words. And because I'm speaking Portuguese, I'm trying to say that in a Portuguese way.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just how they are making sense of the world, and the languages, and how they are learning.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean that there is a problem. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to communicate in both languages. In whatever situation they live in that language, that's what they're going to be expert
Yeah.
at. And the other one is going to come in between
Hmm.
to help them make sense. And it's beautiful because instead of having one way of making sense of the world, they were
Yeah.
going to have two or however many more they want to have. Like
Yeah.
it's just amazing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. And when we're thinking about school, right? So
Hmm.
when we are dealing with um, their writing or their reading, it's really important that whenever we're helping them, when we're giving them feedback, that we are intentional, that we are explicit. So, for example,
Hmm.
I was helping my students were writing a letter, and I had several students writing I in Portuguese. So
Hmm.
AI,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
AI in English. And I told them, look, that's how you write I in Portuguese. In English, we write
Hmm.
I like this. And I showed them and I made them practice. And I said, okay, so next time when you're thinking about I, you're going to write it like this. And don't forget that
Hmm.
it's a capital letter. Though that is already changing because we see so many people not writing I in capital anymore, and there's actual no need anymore to write I in capital because there's a reason why I was always written in capital,
Hmm.
and it was because of the very bad printing systems that we had in the past, there's no need
Mhm.
for that anymore. Nobody's going to confuse the eye anymore. But anyways, that's not something that we are going to decide
No,
to change,
no,
but
no. We're
language
discussing
language is something that is always changing, so
and evolving.
eventually that is going to change. But us as teachers, we have to guarantee that the rules are still taught, right? So we're
Hmm.
still
Yes.
using that as
Mm.
a rule, right?
Yes.
And it's beautiful to see now that when they were writing the final text, I didn't need to write for them to copy because that's what I want them to do. I want
Uh-huh.
them to independently be able to take the
Yes. Right.
feedback and make the changes
Apply.
and
Hmm.
apply, right? So it was beautiful that from, I don't know, 12 of my students that were writing I as I,
AI.
AI, that 3 already wrote I with a capital I. Yay!
Hmm.
That's amazing, right? And that's how the learning of writing goes as well.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah, I love seeing in school. Like it's amazing. Sometimes my kids just say, Miss Pinto, but how do I write this word? And we're like, oh, say the word to me first. And they say it. And I'm like, now do that in a slow motion. And they're like, "Bruh." I'm like, okay, so what was the first slow motion you did? And they start writing. And it's just beautiful. And then they say, is it correct? I'm like, well, I can read what you wrote. It will be correct eventually because
Mhm.
we are learning all the rules. But for now, you are making the sounds that you hear, and that's our objective. So
Yeah.
I think it's just so beautiful how they learn and how they improve and how they grow. But I love that today we did talk about myths. And I think if you are here with us until now, I hope you are, and you should just give us, write some myths that you heard or you want to talk about, or
Yeah.
things that you maybe your principal says to you, or your coordinator, or the person that is in charge, and they say to you, and you were like, I'm second guessing this.
Mhm.
So we can discuss, we can talk about it.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have another episode on this because there are so many things that the practical bit that we
Hmm.
can share with teachers and help them try to apply these things in the classroom because
Yeah.
they are game changers. Some of the
Hmm.
things, like last year, I implemented the heart words, and
Hmm.
it was
Yeah.
amazing, amazing.
Yes.
So we can talk about this in a maybe next episode in the future.
Yes, of
Let's see.
course. Yes.
But thank you very much for staying with us to the end. Please send us your ideas,
Feedback.
the things that you were told to do, and you said,
Hmm.
do I really have to? Or how you managed to just do it anyways because you were told and you play by the book, but with a twist. So,
Yes,
what are
that's
you
awesome.
doing in your classroom that is making a difference and is helping your students learn how to read and write better? And share with us so we can share with everyone, right?
Yay,
Thank you
thank
very much.
you.
See you next
Bye
time.
bye.
Bye.